All right, Packer Nation. Thank you for tuning in. This is John Jameson. I am host of Pack to the Future podcast. With me today is the one and only Kevin Holden. Kevin Holden is the lead sports anchor for CBS 58 Sports, and he is just an insanely funny man. He is just an unbelievable sports mind, and I am so grateful to have Kevin here with us. Kevin, how are you doing today?
Doing great, John. Thanks for having me on. And I think I might need to think about you as an agent, man. That was a heck of an introduction.
I give the best to the best. You know, it's like, you feed off of certain people, and I just feel like you bring out the best in me, and hopefully, I'm able to bring the best out in you, and
it's working well.
And we're gonna give these these viewers some nice little information this week. And you're obviously you have your hands full probably at all times, but you're talking about a time of the year where everyone just can't get enough of sports, especially in Wisconsin. Packers football. What is this time of the year like for you right now, Kevin?
It's you're right about it being busy, John. It is a really busy time, but there is nothing better than the feeling and the atmosphere when you're involved with something like the Packers and the Packers fan base, because the expectation is that January will be a month where there's football, where there's fandom, where there are things to talk about, and it's nice that we're there again, because I think there were a lot of people, and I admit I was one of those people who thought that maybe January wasn't going to have a whole lot this year. But the Packers have been playing terrific football, and I think now for the Packers fan base, the thought is not just getting to this game, but winning this game and continuing on to the Super Bowl. This is the time where you write the chapters, an extra chapter in the legacy of some of these guys, and in this case, this is another possible chapter for Rodgers and McCarthy. And I just love being a part of history. I've been here for 8 seasons and seen quite a bit of history. I'd love to see some more.
And what is your history? As far as what you've done with being, sports anchors and things like that. You just said you've been in Milwaukee for the last 8 years. Where has your profession taken you so far?
Yeah, if you don't know, it's the kind of work that leads you to be a little bit nomadic. I've been really happy and fortunate to be here as long as I have, because this is by far the longest running TV job I've had. So I started in a small station in Georgia, up in the North Georgia mountains, and then spent a few years in Tupelo, Mississippi. Then started sort of doing the dot to dot thing. I was in Houston. I covered a Super Bowl 38 when I was in Houston. Then a year in the Carolinas, a couple years in Austin, Texas, and a couple years in Orlando. You notice all those are warm weather places. It's a little different climate-wise from what you have in Wisconsin, but I have gotten over the shock.
You're still here. You're still with us, Kevin. And I feel like this winter hasn't been all that bad so far. Mid-40s all week this week, but. And then, as far as just where the Packers are potentially going, what's the travel schedule looking like for you? Are you going down to Atlanta for the game? Do you stay here, Super Bowl? What's that looking like?
Well, for me, this is a little different as well, because Atlanta holds a little bit of a special place for me. That's where I grew up. That was a long time ago, but that's where I'm from. That's where my family is. So I am going, and of course the combination of having family and friends there plus this football game there means I don't think sleep is going to happen for the next few days. Well, it is what it is. But we're going to get down there Friday, and of course my job for CBS 58 will start up with the live reports. I think the first one's in the 4 o'clock show on Friday, so we hit the ground running Friday afternoon, and it'll be fantastic. There are some ties for local players to the Atlanta area. Jared Cook went to high school near there. Morgan Burnett went to high school near there and college at Georgia Tech. So we're, there's a couple of things to talk about beyond the typical storylines of the game. This is homecoming, and as you know, John, Ty Montgomery had his homecoming last week in Dallas. I think that worked out pretty well for him.
That worked out pretty well for him. And I mean, you just said that you were from Atlanta, and I mean, I've been doing a little bit of digging on Atlanta, and they've been around since 1966, and essentially the first 20 some odd years of their existence weren't the most they weren't the most noteworthy years, and over the last 18 years. I saw that they had 4 conference championship games and a Super Bowl appearance. So, I mean, over the last 18 years, Atlanta has been a pretty relevant team in the National Football League. And, I mean, as far as a fan base goes, how thirsty are these Falcons fans, I mean, for a Super Bowl? I mean, it's pretty cliche to say every fan wants to have their team win the Super Bowl. But, I mean, they've been in this for a very long time. And, I mean, what type of atmosphere are we going to be expecting, and how thirsty are these fans for a win?
It's interesting. I think the fan base in Atlanta has changed a little bit from the time that I was there. Atlanta does not have a great reputation for its fan base, and a lot of it stems from all those years that the Atlanta Braves made the playoffs, and then the team would have trouble selling out playoff games. And that it's something that you could not fathom in Wisconsin, whether you were talking Brewers or Packers or whatever, that a playoff game might not sell out. But from a Falcons standpoint, I feel like the fan base has gotten more behind this team in Atlanta over the last several years. Now, you have to go back, though, to one very specific Packers playoff memory that involves that city and that team. And it's a little bit of an indication. If you remember the Super Bowl run in 2010, the second stop along the way was in Atlanta. The Packers were a 6th seed. They went to Philadelphia. They beat the Eagles. Then they went to Atlanta. The Falcons were the number 1 seed that year. And Green Bay went in there, and in the first half, Aaron Rodgers just tore the doors off the Georgia Dome. I mean, he was tremendous against the Falcons, and they had such a lead that by the third quarter, the storyline of the game had turned to it was green and gold in the building. These Falcons fans were gone. They left the third quarter of the game. So they, literally it was taking over the Georgia Dome. So, unfortunately, there are those chapters for the Atlanta fans, but the fans are behind this team. And I can tell you from, fans that are friends of mine on Facebook, and the banter's been friendly so far, but they do say that, they're pretty confident. I mean, much more so than I remember them being in that 2010 season. They feel about Matt Ryan the way the local fans here feel about Aaron Rodgers. They think he is the MVP. They think he is the guy that can lead them to a win. And if you think in terms of concerns, it's also the same thing. And both teams, I think, are in fan bases are a little concerned about what their defense can do, and that might be the difference.
I mean, and that leads to my next question. I mean, both of these defenses, I mean, they're not the strongest defenses in the NFL, and that's for sure. And I mean, we're looking at potentially, I think most of us are we're looking for some kind of absolute gunslinging game where we're talking like a high scoring game. And I think the highest scoring playoff game was actually Packers and Cardinals in 2009. And I mean, are we maybe going to be seeing like the highest scoring playoff game in NFL history this week?
51-45. That would be something. That would be a shootout. I don't know if we'll quite get to that level, but at the same time, you remember the first time that the Packers played there back at the end of October, and that was both teams were in the 30s in that game, which is obviously still a pretty high scoring affair. So, I mean, it's possible. I think both offenses for these teams are in better shape, and both defenses have some question marks. For the Packers, remember that when they played in Atlanta at the end of October, they didn't have Clay Matthews, and I think both Rollins and Randall were out. They didn't have Ty Montgomery either. So there are a lot of players who weren't part of that game who are part of this one. But both defenses have a tough task, and it's sort of twofold. It's the personnel that you have. In the Packers' case, who are the corners? Will they be healthy? What can they do against the Falcons' receivers? Julio Jones is obviously a matchup nightmare for anybody. But Mohamed Sanu really showed up in that game, in that first matchup against the Packers back in October. So he's a guy to watch too. That is the two-pronged focus, which is how is your health? Who do you have healthy on defense, and what do you do to try to stop these two quarterbacks? Because we get very focused on what happens with Aaron Rodgers, and this run is just incredible. It's 8 wins, and he just threw his first interception Sunday since the game in Nashville, which was in mid-November. It's 2 months without an interception. But Matt Ryan is playing some terrific football as well, and again, making a good case for the Most Valuable Player award. So you really, in this game, it's a matter of, I don't think you're going to stop either of those guys, but who can contain one of those guys, who can maybe slow down a couple of those drives. And, that might be the difference. If you hold them to 28 instead of 38, then that's the difference between a win and a loss.
And do you have any quick hitter notes for what the Atlanta Falcons have to do to win this game on Sunday?
The one thing the Falcons have that, in my opinion, the Packers have not had at the same level is a strong run game, and that's nothing to take nothing away from Ty Montgomery, who scored the 2 touchdowns last week, but they have, in their running game with Freeman, and they've had Coleman in that mix at some point this year. I think both of those guys can help establish. The Cowboys used Ezekiel Elliott effectively. He gained a lot of yards, but the Packers did their job. They kept him out of the end zone last Sunday. I think the Falcons would like to establish that as well. I mean, they know Matt Ryan will do big things against the defense. I think that's a safe bet that he'll at least have a pretty good game. But if you have an established run game, you can control the clock. You can do that especially later in the game, because clock management when you face the Packers is an enormous thing. I mean, the Cowboys learned it. They gave Rodgers 35 seconds last week, and that was enough for them to lose the game. So you have to be just on in your clock management. You have to be superhuman to beat the superhuman Aaron Rodgers. So that's it right there. I think if they want to establish that run game, and they can, and they run effectively, that's one way that they can help stem the tide.
And then let's just transfer the ball over on the other side of the field. What do the Packers have to do to win this game on Sunday?
The obvious one, I guess, is just give the ball to Aaron Rodgers and get out of the way. But that's I think what's going to happen. The other half of it is defensively what the front seven can do. If you disrupt Matt Ryan, if you disrupt the Falcons receivers, and sort of stop is not the right word. If you contain or sort of bottle up that pass game to an extent, then it's an okay thing to do. The Packers have been at their best in this 8-game win streak when they start fast. In Dallas, it was about getting that lead before the Cowboys got their playoff sea legs. They hadn't played a meaningful game in 3 weeks. So it's 21-3 before anybody could blink. And then the Cowboys found their rhythm, and they were a lot tougher. So I think that is one key there. Start fast, put a little pressure on Matt Ryan as much as you can with that front seven, and maybe take a little pressure off of the secondary, because they will be tested.
And then my last question for you is, do you want to give me any kind of final score prediction?
Okay.
Can you?
Sure, why not? I don't know, but what's the worst that could happen, right?
What's the worst that could happen?
All right, so I do think you got two offenses going in a big way in this game. That's where this game lies, is how those offenses play and who can stop who. But I think the combination of what the Packers have been through from an adversity standpoint and how they've responded to it, winning 8 straight games, means to me that I'm actually really confident that Green Bay is going to win this game. I've kind of been quiet about it on the air, but I've been telling people off the air this week, I really think they've got this. Like, I feel better about this game than I did about the Giants' home playoff game. I know I'm really stepping out there, but for a playoff prediction, for a score prediction, I'm going to go with 33-23. It's a 10-point win, and the Packers are headed back to the Super Bowl.
Let's go. That is music to my ears right there, Kevin. I mean, yeah. We recorded our podcast last night, and I think the majority of us had this game in the 40s. But I mean, as long as the edge comes out in the Packers' direction, we're all okay with it. But
yeah, we got 2 more weeks to play and 2 more weeks to talk football. That's the ultimate goal, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, and then what do you get into once the Packers season gets March Madness?
Yeah, and spring training's right around the corner.
And spring training's right around the corner.
Yeah, pitchers and catchers report February 14th for the Brewers, and so the NBA All-Star game is going to have probably a Bucks All-Star for the first time in a while. So it isn't going to stop. It's not like the Packers season's going to end and then we all sleep. That's at least 3 more months from happening, because you'll have NBA All-Star game, spring training, the tournament, as you mentioned. The Badgers, I think, are poised for a deep run, and then opening day in early April, and then I think I sleep for a month.
Hey, but the Bucks, make a run to the NBA Finals this year,
because those playoffs start in mid-April. I mean, don't get me wrong; it's an embarrassment of riches, right? It's a wonderful thing to have something fun to do and to cover in essentially all 12 months of the year. I'm a baseball fan, so no matter how the Brewers play, I enjoy it. But it's a rare thing, and I hope Wisconsin fans understand that there are a lot of places in the country where this doesn't happen. Either they don't have the same sort of success, or they don't have the same kind of support. And that's the difference. Is the huge success and huge support is really just it's as good here as you can find it, and that's fun. And I'm glad to be a part of it.
And Kevin, I know that I speak for all of Milwaukee when I say that we are blessed to have you covering our beloved sports teams here. And you've been doing such a phenomenal job for a long time, and I know that you ain't slowing down anytime yet, and just keep bringing the heat every week. And I really appreciate you joining us today. And hopefully sometime in the future we can do this again and just get after it again. But I really appreciate the time, Kevin. And can we follow you on Twitter or anything like that? Or...
Oh, sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's for the plug. Yeah, it's at 321Q Kevin. That's 321 CUE Kevin. Little play on a TV term, Yeah, that's my Twitter. Be forewarned that you'll get plenty of sports tweets and then plenty of tweets that might not make a lot of sense. We quote a lot of TV shows in the newsroom, and so they end up on Twitter accounts. So you'll see some stuff that doesn't make any sense, but just look past that for the sports.
Kevin, thank you so much for joining us, and safe travels as you travel all about. And yes, go Pack, go. And again, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, John. Hopefully we're talking about a Super Bowl.
Let's go. Pack to the future. Kevin Holden. Join us again next week, guys.